Yes, I will be reviewing Against All Logic. I got freaking midterms after this, though. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the new album from Eric Taxxon, Gallery. Eric Texan, an obscure Bandcamp artist, still pretty unknown outside of this little circle of YouTube reviewers, but if you do follow us, then you've probably at least heard of the guy. And to describe his music in general is a pretty difficult undertaking, because basically every album of his sounds different and takes from so many different styles and genres. Synth pop, ambient, hip-hop, vaporwave, experimental noise, plunderphonics, house, minimal techno, even punk and straight hip-hop. He's dipped into all of them at various times. I've obviously covered this guy before. I did a video on his Winter Beats album near the end of last year. And some people may also remember that album eventually made it onto number 7 on my year-end albums list from 2017. Not only was I really impressed by it right from the get-go, and while I was talking about it in the video, it just turned out to be a pretty addicting listen that actually just cracked into my regular rotation. An album that I just felt like listening to a lot. Now, I admittedly can't say the same about all of his releases. As varied as his music is stylistically, so was my personal enjoyment of his music. But with this most recent release, which he said was going to be more likely up my audience's alley, I figured this would be a good opportunity to go back and catch up on the rest of his back catalog that I hadn't already covered. This album here is his 22nd release to date. And I already covered 8 of his other releases in my Winter Beats review, so that's not going to be an easy task. But I figured it was worth a shot to see what else he had to offer. Why not? And that's kind of why this video's taken so long as well. I was determined to complete that in brief segment. So I'm now going to go down the rest of his discography so far. Basically, a collection of audio YTP for the most part. Not bad, but probably not going to come back to this. Very slow-moving, experimental noise thing. I've personally never gotten the appeal of this kind of thing, but I know there are people out there who like this kind of stuff, so kind of like a vaporwave thing with some occasional noise elements. I admittedly fast-forwarded through chunks of the 2 17-minute tracks, which got boring, especially Best Pursuits, which really got on my nerves after a while. I'm dancing! But I found more to enjoy out of this one than I didn't. The other tracks were good, so yeah. Okay, now this one was really good. It's just kind of a low-key experimental synth pop album. My kind of stuff for sure. This one's a keeper. Very minimalistic ambient thing here. Also, first album that he sings on. Pretty good, nice variety. Can see myself coming back to this one too. Now we've moved into some pretty cool minimal techno house thing. Kinda background music-y, and I've heard better stuff in this vein before, but I do generally enjoy this kind of stuff. I had fun with this, it's worth a shot. And this is a companion EP to the previous album. The album was more house, this is more minimal. Again, good stuff. Oh shit, gotta highlight this one. This is an ambient release, but much darker than his other ones. Most of Eric Taxxon's releases are very low-key, small in scale, unpretentious, but this album was the first one that really seemed to carry some real visceral weight with me. It felt a lot more vast and spacious than any of his other releases I have heard. Even the audio tearing here in some areas actually complements the mood this album is going for, and it's not overdone. Also ends with a cover of The Looking Glass's Brandy or a Fine Girl, which, I prefer the original because that's a major part of my childhood, but yeah. This was a nice change of pace that I'll definitely need to give my thumbs up to. I'm keeping this one. So this is a Halloween EP, apparently originally split with someone else called The Ambiguity. It's... I don't know. I guess a mix of some previous experimental releases with a magical theme, 2 abstract tracks, 1 noise track, and 1 lo-fi pop track. It's skippable. He's got better stuff like this, and I just didn't really find much to enjoy here, personally. This is an album produced entirely in Audacity and made of invisible click tracks and random samples from basically anywhere, ranging from Daniel Lopatin pianos and amen breaks to the voices of Mark from Spectrum Pulse and Anthony Fantano. It's actually pretty creative and interesting and comes together pretty nicely. Another Plunderphonics release, kind of a weird and interesting commentary on bad children's media on one side, and what mostly sounds like a mixture of audio from random vlog videos on the other side. It's definitely worth at least one listen, but I'm not sure how much it has in terms of replay value. I definitely prefer the Rob Schneider one over the Ode to the People. I'm skipping the other albums of his that I already covered in the Winter Beats video, but I wanted to mention this one again real quick because I listened to it again and it was actually a lot better than I remembered. I think I just didn't like it initially because I saw myself in it and it didn't seem to reflect well on my psyche. But no, I've come around on this one. This one's Blush is good. Okay, skipping to this one. This is another ambient release. It's pretty good, but nothing mind-blowing. And this is a minimalistic ambient electronic pop album. Not precisely a lot of elements going into it, but all the elements themselves work really well, so yeah, I really like this one too. Which brings us to here, so yeah, that's a freaking lot of Eric Taxxon. He's definitely got a very intimidating back catalog, and not one that is likely to please everyone consistently. I certainly didn't like everything he had to offer, but I do think he is the kind of artist that even if you don't like everything he has, you'll probably at least like something he has to offer. Because there's just so much variety. Be it his more accessible and poppier stuff like Paul the Anthill One Pop, to his weird, whacked out experimental stuff like Ode to Rob Schneider, Ode to the People, Copy, all of his first 3 albums, Blush, maybe The Art State too, but that's kind of in between the pop and experimental stuff. Maybe if you're an ambient person, you'll like Sky Simplified, My Lady, Cicada, and Summer Drones. Or if you want some more electronic stuff of My Usually, you'll like Find My Knob, Hotel and Motel Songs, and of course Winter Beats. And also this latest one here, Gallery. Now, spoilers, I don't think Gallery is better than Winter Beats in my eyes, just doesn't have that same addictive quality to it, but this is definitely up there. One of my favorites from him so far. So this here is Eric Taxxon's take on IDM, albeit kind of combining with his more accessible minimalistic pop style. And every track on here is named after a 20th century artist. And I don't mean like musical artist, I mean like visual artist, like painters or occasionally installation artists in the case of Olafur Eliasson and Ingvar Cronhammar. I apologize for butchered pronunciations as per usual. Each track, I suppose, is trying to tribute these artists and, like, represent their art in musical form. I'm not familiar with all of the work from these artists. I had to look up a lot of these names just to see what he was going with some of these. But it does appear that the whole, tribute to these artists is the main intent of this album. Like, for instance, the Mark Rothko and Agnes Martin tracks are much more minimalistic and ambient-centric, because those two are fairly minimalistic artists themselves. Norman Rockwell, the Saturday Evening Post guy, gets kind of a nostalgic piano track to his name, which is fitting. Ingvar Cronhammar gets a harsh and percussive metallic-sounding track to match his metallic art. Or Pablo Picasso, Twombly, and Kazimir Malevich. They're more abstract and colorful artists, and they get more abstract and colorful tracks. Maybe a bit strange that the Picasso and Twombly tracks sound fairly similar, and their art is not at all similar, but you get the idea. I don't know if it totally works for everyone. Carl Andre, for instance, gets a 4-second modulated kick drum sound, and that's it. If there's a joke there, I don't get it. Could just be an arbitrary matchup there, I don't know. Same with Marcel Duchamp, the guy who drew a mustache on the Mona Lisa and apparently did some other Cubist art. He just gets a straight synth-pop track that could have fit on something like The Anthill or One Pop. Well, sonically, not lyrically. The lyrics to this one are about an art gallery, of course. Well, I don't know how deeply I should actually be analyzing this concept in general, but it's clear there was enough effort put into it that I had to bring it up in the discussion anyways. So more importantly, let's talk about the music all by itself. I don't think there are any bad tracks on here, but there are definitely some better than others. Like, for instance, Pablo Picasso and Twombly, right off the bat, easily my favorites in the bunch. The former has a lot of these light ambient pads and some off-kilter percussion on a weird time signature, with some pianos thrown in there at random intervals. Definitely gives off that abstract sort of vibe, and is very pleasant and mood-lifting experience. As I said, Twombly has a pretty similar sounding track, the weird time signature IDM stuff with pianos, and also the surprise guitar line from Matt Hartle, which took the track from good to great for me. Just added that extra flair to it that just made it especially satisfying to listen to. Kazimir, Malevich, and Ingvar Cronhammar's tracks are pretty good abstract pop IDM sort of stuff as well, both noticeably more aggressive than the Picasso and Twombly tracks. Especially the Ingvar Cronhammar track, where the drums start to get really noisy and distorted. But both still good fun to listen to, and obviously I was quite into the Norman Rockwell track. Do always like me a nice little piano interlude. Agnes Martin reminded me a lot of Aphex Twin's Blue Calcs. Very stripped back, clicking beat with ambient melodies floating over it. I mean, it sounds like almost a direct homage. It's certainly no replacement to RDJ. This track took a while to get to a similar level of spaciousness, and even so had a lot of empty sections with just the clicking, but it was among the more enjoyable tracks for me as well. Same with the Mark Rothko track. This one's almost into like Brian Eno territory or something, I guess. That one also takes a while to get going for me, but it is nice. The ambient material on here in general is not the strongest ambient material Taxxon has had to offer and aren't huge standouts, but I never skip them or think, this one's boring, I don't need to listen to this one. No, they're all welcome additions. Now, of course, not every track on here is a winner. I mean, the 4-second Carl Andre track aside, I still don't really get the purpose of that one. The opener, Olafur Eliasson, it was not the strongest of openings to the album. It's very low-key and progresses quite slowly, though it does have its moments near the second half that are pretty cool. I mean, it's a good track, but I maybe wouldn't have started the album with it. It just feels like a bit of an arbitrary pick for an opener. And the two tracks with vocals, I'm a little on the fence over too. The William Kentridge track has these really high-pitched vocoder effects. I can also specifically tell which synth setting he used for it too. It's a synth setting he uses a lot. And that stuff, it got on my nerves a little bit. It was just a bit, the high-pitched stuff I'm not a fan of. Thankfully, this track does bring in some playful pianos and a more satisfying bass line by the end, so I can give that one a pass. It's still a good track. And the closer, Marcel Duchamp, it kind of has a playful and silly nature to it that makes it, nice, lighthearted fun to listen to, but I wish I could say I like this one more than I do. I'm not really sure how to explain what wasn't really working with me on the closer here. I mean, I thought maybe it was his voice, but, in general I do think Taxxon has improved a lot as a frontman since the days of Sky Simplified and Hotel Songs. He doesn't have the greatest voice, but his singing has been progressively been getting better as these releases have gone on, and it's not like he's ever been a terrible singer or anything. The singing isn't his worst, but it's not his best either. And I guess I've just heard better and more satisfying vocal tracks from him before, like on Paul and One Pop. There was a fair bit of this kind of thing here, and it is also taking this album, which had some genuinely really captivating and engaging moments, on just kind of a light and silly finish, which, I don't know if it was what I'd have gone out on either. I probably would have picked the Mark Rothko track as a closer personally, but, I'll still give Marcel Duchamp props for being catchy. Taxxon has always been really good with melodies that get stuck in your head easily, and this is no exception. So overall, yeah, I do have my issues with Gallery. It's not the most consistent. Some great stuff here, but some stuff which is just above average. I can certainly see myself coming back to it, though it's not the kind of album that I feel like I'm gonna have, running through my head and feel the urge to listen to a lot to get my spirits up. But I also enjoyed this whole thing from front to back. Even if I have my nitpicks with the weaker moments, the weaker moments are still all good. It's still a unique and very creative idea that you're not gonna get anywhere else. It's the kind of thing that you're only gonna hear from Eric Taxxon. And like I said, the best moments on here are really something special. So if IDM with a little Eric Taxxon minimalist pop twist on it sounds like a cool idea to you, I would say this is worth a shot. So yeah, thumbs up on this one, and I'm overall feeling a 7.7 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time. Eric Taxxon, an obscure Bandcamp artist, still pretty fuck off.